Hey everyone, Mario again, coming at you with another literature review. As you can tell, it's another Dark Tower related one, but this is not a novel one. This is a short story one. It is the short story that King wrote in between books 4 and 5. Its story builds a little bit off of knowledge of 4, but you don't have to have read 4 to understand it, but it helps with a couple little things that Roland muses. It's not told in a flashback like the previous one. So technically speaking, if you want to read the story in chronological order, this is probably what you would start with. The Little Sisters of Eluria. Now, it was originally published in the collection of short stories by many authors called Legends in 1998, which also is where The Hedge Knight by George R. R. Martin was originally published. So, two short stories by two great authors that are entries and their big grand mythos. And then it was published again in Everything's Eventual, King's 2002 short story collection, which is where I have it. I don't have my copy on hand, but I do have it, and that's where I read it in. This is a long time coming because I've had that copy for a couple years, and being a Dark Tower fan like I am, you'd think I would have read it before then. And being the Dark Tower fan that I am, you'd think I would have read it before now, but nope, this is the first time I ever read it. I've read the synopsis before, but I've never actually read it. And I have to say, it was a fun little short story. Events shows us a little bit of Roland's journey after the fall of Gilead, and it takes place years before he finally caught up with Walter. Now, how long after the fall of Gilead it takes place, we don't know, but if I were to hazard a guess based on how Roland acts, I would say he's at least 20 to 25 during the events of this short story, at most 30. It's mainly because he acts more mature and a little bit wiser than he does during the flashback events of Wizard and Glass, but he's still not as seasoned as he was during the main part of the first Dark Tower novel, where he has that mindset, with caution, but he's not as seasoned and not as eager to fire on a situation like when he finds slow mutants. Book 1 Roland would have massacred that entire group of slow mutants without batting an eye when they kept coming forward. He would have fired, and he probably would not have gotten taken by surprise by that one. No, I just did a minor spoiler, but I had to get that out of the way. Now, the plot of this story is that Roland comes across a little town called Eluria. It's deserted. He finds one body in the trough. The horse that he was with dies, and then he's attacked by a group of slow mutants. Now, these ones seem to be a little bit more intelligent and less mutated than the ones he encountered with Jake under the mountains in the first book, but they're still slow mutants. They knock him out, and you'd think he'd be dead, but no, he wakes up in a hospital. He's like in a sling thing, and there's these little weird insect things on him and a couple other patients that are healing them. They're called the Little Doctors. And while he's there, he meets the sisters of the title. Now, at first, he could tell there's something weird about it, but he just can't put his finger on it. But as he's there for a while, he realizes that these sisters are vampires. And everyone they bring in there, they heal them with the doctors, then they feed off them. Now, they're not touching him just as yet because the medallion that he took from the dead body grants him religious protection. Now, there's one sister, her name is Jenna, and you can tell right away that there is an attraction between the two of them. And it's not only noticed by them, the other sisters notice it and a couple times tease Roland over it. And she offers to help him, and in the end, of course, Roland escapes thanks to her help, and he deals with the vampires, but not with his guns. That's the interesting thing. And they do declare their love for another at the end, but as you can tell with Roland, it is tragic. It's not as tragic as what happens to Susan Delgado, but it is tragic and sad, and reading the scene, I'm like, I felt for Roland. It's like, second time, man, second time. No wonder after this, whenever he was with a woman, he didn't let himself get attached, because twofer. First one is burned to death, and second one just vanishes into thin air, like dust in the wind. Now, the Little Sisters, other than the head sister, I wouldn't say that they're evil. They're just going with their vampire nature to feed in order to sustain themselves. But the head sister, they don't call her Mother Superior like they would with Catholic nuns, but that's essentially what she is. She is the only one that I would classify as evil. And you can tell she enjoys what she does. And the little conversation she has with Roland and Jenna at the end sets it home. And the way that they defeat her, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's an interesting little convention. I'm like, I wonder how long he was writing this before King thought of this. Or Was he like near the end? He's like, what I gotta do? Like, oh yeah, I remember that. It's not fully required reading for those reading to the Dark Tower series, but it's a nice little bonus. This is the reason I wish King would actually write some more short stories set in the Dark Tower verse, and then you can all publish them all in its own little collection. You know, set them all before the first one, you know, different stages along the way. Other than that, there's not really much else to say about it. It's a short story, standalone. Nothing really deep about it other than, you know, Roland's little love adventure. Not really much shooting other than the slow mutants. And I know there's a comic adaptation, which I do want to read one of these days to see how they interpreted everything. If you did do an adaptation of the series as a whole, you could do this as like a standalone episode, or even a short film. It'd be an interesting student film project, but I don't know if you'd be able to do it with the Dollar Baby thing. It'd be an interesting thing to look into. I know I'd love to try to film this as a student film. It'd be fun. Now, where do I rank it among all the other stuff? I'd probably put it at the bottom of the ones I've read thus far. You know, the ranking thus far from high to low would be Book 3, The Wastelands, Book 1, The Gunslinger, Book 4, Wizard and Glass, Book 2, The Drawing of the Three, and then this short story. And like I said, it's not fully required reading if you're getting into the Dark Tower series, but if you don't want to get through novels and just want to, you know, get a little foot in, just see how this verse is, this wouldn't be a bad starting place, because it's a standalone short story, so good little introduction.